All right, guys, we're finally getting to work on this 69 Camaro. This is the one that's getting the one-piece floor from Real Deal Steel. So it's getting Detroit Speed mini tubs. Got them in the trunk here. The whole front floor is getting replaced, the trunk floor and the frame rails, and they're notched, of course, for those mini tubs. So first thing we need to do, we did get it dug out. We need to get the tractor and get it over on the lift and get this thing braced up. We got the Camaro back in place, got it spun around. The next step is get everything out of the interior here. We have some crossbars. We're gonna weld diagonally in here and then weld them together. So when we cut this floor out, it'll strengthen it and keep the body from twisting. So let's get the rest of this cleaned out and we'll get these mocked up. All right, Chris, what in the world are you doing in the trunk?
Trying to get this connector off here.
He's unplugging our harness. Anytime you do a bunch of welding or cutting,
There it is, got it.
try and get your harnesses out of the way so you don't catch them on fire. This is all good stuff, so we are going to reuse this. So we'll fish it right through. As you can see, it looks a little dirty. Chris is going to twist up like a pretzel and get back out of the truck. We have our X brace fitted in here. We just have it tack welded, actually a little bead welded from the roof support down to the inner rocker. Same from the other side, and then welded together in the center. This will just keep this sturdy, especially when we cut this floor out. We'll have no chance of moving in and out. So with that inner brace, we actually have a new dash panel too. So we threw that up there and mocked it up, and we actually went ahead and cut through there. It's so rusty on the front, I think it's just going to actually pull right off. So let's get that out of the way. We'll get this cleaned up and get this new piece laid down in there. So we got top of the dash off, and you can see the damage, the rust damage, but the cow panel is actually still solid. So once we get that cleaned up, we'll get that prepped and some weld through primer sprayed on it, sand that down nice, and that'll be good for us. Got our air chisel. We're gonna clean all this old rusty metal up off there. Like I said, wire brush that down, get it cleaned up and treated, and we'll be ready for our new panel. All right, we have the body up on the lift now, and you can see why we're taking this out. These patches are they're definitely not near as nice as it needs to be. It's structurally sound, but they look horrible. So all that's coming out. So the next step is going to be just hog out all the center floor, just get rid of it all of this front floor, the frame rails, the trunk floor is all getting replaced. So let's get cutting. We got the front part of the floor hogged out. That's the first step. We'll keep cutting our way back. Obviously we're going to stay away from our edges here, our finished product, but yep, got all that hogged down. We're just going to keep right on cutting, and we're using a Sawzall to do the work. It's a little dirty, but let's get it done. All right guys, of course we have our safety glasses on because we are cutting, and we got some more of the floor out. Now we can actually stand up in the middle of the car, but we have the whole front hogged out. Again, we'll come back later and start chiseling all of this off. We're gonna stay, I know it's a little dark in here, but we're gonna keep the inner rocker, of course, and that's gonna be straight down from that. So everything else that's welded on needs to come off and be cleaned up, ground down, and we'll put some primer on that so we can weld through it. Our next step right now is to drill the spot welds for these seat braces, for the back seat support, and we'll get them chiseled off so we can keep going and removing this trunk floor. We have the spot welds drilled. We can take our air chisel, pop right through them, separate these two pieces. Now we have these loose. Of course, we're going to keep on cutting. I made some cuts here, right up around the wheel well. These are broke loose. There's some more supports back there, so we're going to go around them, and we're actually going to go right on the outside of the frame rail, right across, and this whole trunk floor will drop out. Of course, we're going to be out of the way when it does. All right, we got pretty much everything cut out. We went up around the wheel well on both sides, came across the frame rails here all the way down, and I think we're about ready to go. We do have a pole jack here, and we have two guys, so let's see that, see if we can get this drop out. Yeah, right, we can take it right out of the door. Our next step is to air chisel all the flange off. As you can see, I already started this side. We need to clean all that up to inner rocker. We got our air chisel here. So whittling away at that. We got some work done today. We got these rockers all cleaned up. We'll have to hammer and dolly a little bit and repair a couple of spots. Sometimes when you cut the spot welds out, it does rip the metal, but we'll just weld those holes up, and this is all looking good. We have the toe board cut back. We are putting a firewall in this car, of course, but right now we want to leave that in for strength, but I want to cut that back so we can put the floor in with no obstruction. Same way with this side. Did have a little rust on here on the inner rocker, so I'll cut that out and replace a piece of metal there. We got the inner wheelhouses all pulled out and cleaned up for the most part. This side is cleaned up a little bit better, so that's all cleaned up. We do have to pull this small section out, and because it's a wider wheelhouse, inner wheel well, whatever you want to call it, we will have to notch this back. So I'll probably just lose this piece, get that sitting in there, and then figure out where it needs to be trimmed and put back to. We got the trunk floor drop-offs pulled off too on both sides. This one still needs cleaned up a little bit. We were gonna just save the tail pan and remove the inner pan and the rest of the trunk pan, which is kind of a lot of work. We got looking at I don't know if you can see this, but there's actually, it's pretty rough. It's pretty beat up here. There's some body filler in it, and over here it's a little it's rough enough, and it's gonna make this job easier. We're just gonna replace the tail pan. These are factory GM quarters. Chris was told they were when he bought it, and when we cut this loose, it still has the factory GM sticker on it. So these are good quarters. We're not disturbing these. Of course, we will have to redo the tail pan to quarter spot, but that's fine. Removing the tail pan, we won't have to remove all of this from the tail pan, so I'll just make a couple cuts and all of this will be removed. We already removed the bracket there, trunk latch bracket. So this will speed the process up for sure, and it'll end up making a nicer overall job because this isn't super nice anyway. So this is actually a kind of a wide gap, and this side is a pretty decent gap. So it is what it is. We'll just keep moving on and replace that panel. Chris was able to help. He wanted to get here and learn a little bit how to do this, and it's not always good having a customer help, but Chris is a good worker. a good fast learner, and he was able to grind this stuff down and make definitely speed up the process along with that too. So we're going to keep going here, and it's shaping up and looking pretty nice now. We got rid of most of all the jagged edges, and we have good clean metal to go off of. And like I said, once I make a couple cuts here, all that will be gone, which will help too. I'll be able to flex the quarters slightly to get that trunk floor to pop up in there. I was a little worried about that anyway, but now we don't have to worry about it. We can flex them and do whatever we need to get that in there. Of course, you can't flex them too much because they're already welded on the car, but there is some give there. All right, we got the go ahead and just replace this rear tail panel, which is actually going to make our job a little bit easier. It's a little bit more work because we need to get back into the quarters, you know, around through here and here. I don't really like the way they did this anyway. They tack welded on the outside. This really should be spot welded. So we'll cut that off and try and clean this edge back up and make it look factory again. But it will make it easier as we're putting the floor in. One, we don't have to do all the cleanup and all these spot welds down through here. There's a ton of them in there. And this tail pan isn't 100%. It could be straightened out, and it's not really rusty, but it's definitely not 100%. It would have to be straightened out. So we're doing all this. We might as well just chop that out of there and replace it. So we have our scalpel here, and we're gonna make some cuts.